Initiating Secure System Boot. Welcome to the front line of cyber defense, where data integrity meets absolute security. This is SYRAG OS, enterprise hardened.
Okay, let's jump straight into this explainer. Today, we're looking at how modern software architecture is finally evolving to eliminate all that redundant setup work. We're going to examine a really fascinating framework developed by Maurizio Rossari for SYRAG, and it tackles a structural roadblock that, well, literally, every developer knows all too well. So what's so interesting about this starting point is how perfectly it captures that extremely relatable frustration we all feel when staring down a blank canvas. I mean, think about your last major project. How much time did you actually spend just getting the underlying engine to start, before you could even begin building those unique features you actually set out to create? It's a lot, right? Which brings us to Section 1, the blank canvas problem. Repeating the same setup decisions. When every single project starts differently, a massive portion of your work is just totally wasted reinventing the exact same foundational wheels. We're talking about organizing files, describing the module, figuring out launch protocols, exposing state control, managing the configurations, and setting up logs and local data. These are absolutely crucial components of any software, for sure, but they are not the unique problem you were hired to solve. Reinventing the whole shebang every single time is just a huge drain on your productivity. Okay, moving right along to Section 2. Enter deterministic structure, the SYRAG template manager solution. Now, the really crucial point here is that a deterministic structure isn't about boxing you in or restricting your creativity. It's actually about providing consistent conventions for developing, launching, and testing. It absolutely does not mean that every single aspect of your app is rigidly decided in advance. It just means that what doesn't need to be reinvented is finally locked down and made stable. It gives you this consistent initial skeleton that handles all those repetitive, boring decisions we just talked about, basically taking them right off your plate. And this workflow perfectly illustrates how the SYRAG module generation skill operates, moving seamlessly from a simple request right into core development. So first, a request comes in. This defines the module's name, interface, layout, and its core purpose. Second, the model manager takes those parameters and instantly generates the corresponding skeleton. Third, that generated structure is verified and launched in its environment just to make sure everything's talking to each other. And then finally, in step 4, the real magic happens. The boilerplate is already handled, so you can jump straight into creating and validating the actual application logic. Section 3, the boundary of AI, speed versus responsibility. So while AI can definitely be used in manual, LLM, or hybrid modes to speed up drafting, the human operator always retains absolute control over the domain logic. If we break this down, the AI's role is strictly supportive. It proposes ideas, it drafts text, it suggests functionality. But human responsibility, that is paramount. It is the human who determines the model, certifies the domain logic, and ultimately makes the call to publish the module. The AI does not and cannot operate independently to make those critical domain decisions. And that brings us to perhaps the single most critical takeaway from the source material. Speed of support does not eliminate process responsibility. I just love that phrasing. It's a powerful reminder that while we can automate the setup and use AI to draft functionality at lightning speed, accountability doesn't just disappear. The buck absolutely still stops with the human designer who truly understands the problem they're solving. Let's look at Section 4, freedom within standardization. Consistency without cloning. You might be wondering if this shared structure forces all modules to act identically. Well, standardization only applies to how the module exists within the ecosystem, leaving the specific application logic totally free to evolve. You have this standardized foundation that gives the platform a common language for launching, monitoring, and connecting to other SYRAG components. But the unique content, the domain, the specific data, the complex rules and client requests, that remains entirely custom. It's basically a common technical framework supporting wildly different needs without ever confusing their specific requirements. Section 5, real-world applications, putting the structure to the test. To really grasp this, just look at these recent SYRAG modules. You have the VAT Manager, EU Funder, Patent Manager, and Copyright Office. These are incredibly distinct, highly specialized, and frankly, very complex domains. Yet, they all share the exact same technical starting point. This proves that a common framework can absolutely support vastly different client needs. Thanks to the SYRAG template manager, developers didn't waste weeks reinventing the basic infrastructure. They just focused 100% on the intricate rules of taxation, funding, and intellectual property. It's really fascinating to trace this back and see how empirical experience gathered during the SYRAG lab research phase, documented in a comparative evolution analysis on Zenodo, has been directly integrated into today's highly efficient template manager. All that past institutional knowledge and those legacy tools didn't just disappear. They directly evolved into the robust SYRAG environment we have today. The template manager draws right from that lab experience, making it practical and immediately usable. Ultimately, this ecosystem allows you to develop modules faster and with much higher quality, simply because you are always starting from a highly advantageous position. It's not just some flashy promise of total automation, it's a deep structural philosophy. You transform your previous work into a significantly better foundation for your next project, which drastically reduces that initial ambiguity. You aren't starting from scratch anymore. You're starting from established, battle-tested conventions. So I want to leave you with this final thought as you gear up for your next software project. Are you ready to stop reinventing the foundational wheel and start focusing entirely on solving real domain problems? Embracing a deterministic structure might just be the exact key you need to unlock that focus. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope it gave you some highly actionable insights into optimizing how you build software, right from day one.